We have moved from the sandwich generation to something called the triple-decker club sandwich. And that's what we're going to talk about today on today's episode of Decoding Retirement. Hi, I'm Bob Powell, your host. And today I'm joined by Sherry Finkel Murphy, the founder and CEO of Madrina Mali. Sherry, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get straight to it. What the heck is the triple-decker club sandwich? I'm well familiar with the sandwich generation, where you had three generations, children, parents, and older adults, maybe in some cases living under the same roof, maybe not. But now we have, what, 4 generations?
This is the first time in history that 4 and 5 generations are living contemporaneously. And that's crazy. That affects our housing, that affects our familial relationships, and it's a tremendous opportunity to learn from grandparents in a way that maybe you and I did not have that opportunity by the time we met our grandparents. Maybe they had passed, but maybe they were older. So the triple-decker club sandwich generation is my joke, not only about my cohort, but also my own life, as I have grandchildren and a 97-year-old mother, and there's nothing wrong with her.
That's good, because I've read recently that the incidence of Alzheimer's and dementia is on the rise, and so it's good to know that someone her age has her wits about her.
She's 110%, which is very exciting, but you make a scary and correct point, and that is for a woman 65, there's almost a 20% chance that she will experience dementia. So we've got our work cut out for us, but I don't want to go to the negative. Aging and longevity it's promising.
Right. So there are hurdles, right? I spend a lot of time in my community. I'm involved in our age-friendly efforts where we're trying to make our community more livable according to the 8 domains of livability, according to the World Health Organization, or AARP. And in our community, as in many communities in the Northeast, the housing is not age-friendly. So is that something that people need to worry about as we think about the triple-decker club sandwich?
Absolutely. You after a while, it becomes easier to say.
That's going to roll off my tongue.
You can just say sandwich generation. We know what we're talking about. Basically, there are more of us, and it is collapsing. According to Ryan Frederick, the author of Right Place, Right Time, he says that only 4% of our housing stock is accessible. And what you're seeing, I know that the press likes to demonize whether it's private equity or whomever is for builders not building enough housing, but we don't have the housing stock to accommodate our population anyway. Boomers cannot downsize to cottages because nobody's building the cottages, so they're stuck at home. The kids can't get into their home. But there may be good reasons for them to maintain flexibility, because employment is no longer a 20 or a 30-year guarantee. So they may want the flexibility of being in and out. There are, according to Pew Research, there's 40% of the people who live multi-generationally, and that number overall has quadrupled in 50 years, 40% for financial reasons. It is less expensive to maintain whatever household if there are more people sharing responsibility. And then behind that is the cohort that does it for caring, whether it's elder care or child care, which I think makes wonderful sense, not if it's forced, but if it's planned. And the third cohort, which I think is really interesting because it reflects the influence of the global South, is that 28% of those who live multi-generationally do it because that's the way it's always been. Yeah. And I think that as an economic incentive, at the end of World War II, the move to suburbia, to the nuclear family, the single-family house, that had merit economically, but it changed a dynamic for 50, 60 years. And I think now we're returning to an earlier dynamic with the multi-generational family because there are that many more of us. And I'm in the middle of it, because I like to say that I'm a woman with her mother's spare walker in the boot and her grandchild's spare child seat in the back of the same SUV. And when I am in New York, I am a daughter. And when I am in Ohio, where I bounce back and forth, I am a grandma. And whatever that entails, whether it's bringing mom to doctor's appointments, which is the deal that I signed up for in New York, or sewing brownie patches on the Girl Scout uniform, which is the grandmother duty that I signed up for.
Yeah.
All while having a business. So this is our world.
So one of the things that you mentioned is for folks who have the luxury of having their grandparents alive is the ability to tap into their collective wisdom, I think. And I'm reminded of a book that Carl Pillimore for Cornell University wrote where he interviewed our nation's oldest Americans and collected their thoughts about work and families and marriage and things that they regret and wish they had done instead of what they had done. And I'm curious, like, do you take advantage of that in your life? And would that be the advice that you have for people who are living in these multi-generational households?
Yes. In addition to either households or neighborhood, living nearby, such that it's accessible. When we are in Ohio, we are across the street from the kids and the grandkids. And there's a lot to be said for raiding grandpa's fridge or looking for the extra freezer space. I mean, I realize that this is silly, but it's a very practical consideration to extend the family unit. So the answer to your question that I can think of is the relationship from parent to child is fraught. It is, maybe it's fear-based. But the grandparent is a role model and a storyteller and can be subversive because the pressure is not there. And there's only, there's only smiles and there's only good feelings from grandma and grandpa because everything the grandchild does is magnificent.
Right. So is there as you think about these club sandwich generations, any other actionable advice that you have, regardless of what role you're playing, child, parent, grandparent?
Well, I think the advice that I give to my clients who come to me with, fear or trepidation is to plan for the roles and responsibilities. If you have a child with young children trying to grow a family, recognize that their employment may not look like your employment. They may want flexibility. They may want the ability to look for employment in a different state at some point. I think it's important to understand the duration of the multi-generational living. How long will they be around? And what makes it a win for everyone? I just wrote a little bit on that, and that's we describe offers to have a kid come back with us and somebody boomerang or maybe not launch until they're 30 to make it easy for them to save money. Whatever the scenario is, it's important that there be a tacit agreement that says you're here and here's what I get out of it too. And I think many times we forget to create a little bit of a quid pro quo that once a child is an adult, there's got to be something, even if it's just help with the errands or running grandma to a doctor's appointment, whatever that means, whatever is meaningful becomes compensation. So there's lots of tender that you can work with there.
Yeah. So you, I think, have mentioned in the past that women tell you that they're hot messes. And that they may never retire, they don't know if they have enough, et cetera, et cetera. How do they escape that hot mess?
There's a hope in my message is the simple answer. They come to me, I pull out the box of tissues, and we get the cry out of the way. And then I point out that it's time to think thanatologically. Now, insurers know that word, right? Insurers know that word, but the rest of the universe doesn't think that way. When you are 50, the actuaries tell you that your life expectancy is somewhere around 82 as a woman. And what we don't internalize enough of is that that's 32 years. And if you take care of yourself, and let's say only the last 5 years is old age, well, now you have 27 years to do stuff. And that's almost 3 doublings of the market if you're financially behind the 8 ball. That is an opportunity to learn new skills. I mean, think of where you and I were 27 years ago. That's an opportunity to create businesses and consultancies. And the notion that you're a deteriorating asset and there's no hope for you, well, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So my job is to make sure they know that that self-fulfilling prophecy doesn't need to happen. There really is enough runway.
Yeah. Sometimes we joke around here about a new series that we want to create called "I'm Not Done Yet," and you have a saying that I think goes something like "Not young, not done."
Not young, not done. That's the hashtag, and I put it almost everywhere, that there's enough time to start something. And I think that, again, the press loves acknowledging people who are still at it after 40 and 50 years. I know they made a big deal about Demi Moore receiving a Golden Globe Award, but what about the people who start things at 50 and 60 and 65 and 75? It's extraordinary. And the message that I would like for women to internalize is that you have time to start something.
Yeah. Sherry, we have to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about this notion of the year of not saving. Welcome back to Decoding Retirement. I'm talking with Sherry Finkel Murphy, the president and founder of Madrina Mali. And Sherry, I want to turn my attention to a topic that you've described as the year of not saving. Now, in our show, we have talked about things like how to maybe improve the odds of you having retirement security by working longer. But the year of not saving is a new one on me.
It's not something new, but I tell the story differently. And remember, the cohort, the women of a certain agency, they do not see themselves in the literature. They don't see themselves in the stories. So I'm centering them in the stories. And we think we're going to work until we're somewhere around 65. And it's a long slog to get there at a time when you become invisible, right? 50-year-old women, but men too, but we become invisible in our 50s, and it feels painful, and employers are notoriously disloyal, so we don't know what's what. Now, you and I know that the math of deferring distribution makes a retirement plan sing, that funding 29 years of retirement is easier than funding 30, 28 years. So we know that to be true. Well, what I position is, what if someone plans at 55, say, to not contribute to the 401k? And let's say their plan is to put $20,000, just round numbers, $20,000 into it. That's what they'd normally contribute. And the corporate match would make it 30, so another 10 in corporate match. We know that money doubles every 10 years. We use 7.2%. So at 65, that would be $60,000. The 30 becomes 60. And let's say this person is a good saver and has done what they were supposed to do, and they have $1 million in the 401k at 55. Well, at 65, that's going to be $2 million, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if we can exchange not retiring at 65, but instead retiring at 66, the simple math says that $2 million is going to be $2.2 million, right? It will have gained a tenth of a doubling, or $200,000. And the $60,000 would only be $1,060,000. Now, would you rather retire at 66 with $2.2 million nest egg and take a vacation and spend every bit of $20,000 on a vacation at age 56? Or would you rather go ahead and contribute to 55 and wait until you're 66 to take the big vacation? So, and then you'd only have $2,120,000. So
when we talk about retirement, oftentimes we say you get to retirement and then you have go-go, slow-go, no-go years. In a way, what you're doing is sort of bringing forward the go-go year to enjoy them while you can, versus maybe the possibility of not being able to enjoy them when you retire.
Yeah, I think that's important, because suddenly, and when I say suddenly, I mean in 40 years, we've gotten this 20-year after work phase, and we don't know what to call it. We don't have a name for it.
Longevity bonus, some people call it.
It's the next thing phase. I call it the step away phase, the step away career. You may work, but you're done with the man.
Yeah.
And we need to acknowledge, and I'd like the press to acknowledge, that there's something between ending the corporate relationship and the rocking chair. And that could be 20 years of real activity, which is exciting.
Yeah. Now, years ago, Ken Dykewald, who you may be familiar with, I used to listen to him say that people would sort of phase in and out of the workplace. And at the time, that really wasn't happening because people didn't necessarily have the opportunity to re-enter the workforce after they phased out to go take a sabbatical or not. Here, you're not necessarily suggesting that that's just what they do. It's just sort of they take a break from saving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for some, that may be hard, right? Because they've been taught their whole life.
These
right?
are rule followers. We're rule
Right?
followers.
And we have a habit now, right? I mean, it's sort of hard to break the savings habit if you're in it, perhaps. And you want to feel guilty about not saving.
Which is why they get so excited when I say I'm giving you permission at 55 to take this money and put it aside into a high-yield savings account, of course, so that you can use it for a vacation at 56 or a sabbatical.
All right. So maybe this is a good runway to talk about what you described as the longevity plan that people need to put in place, because if you're going to do this, there are other things that you need to put in place to make all this work.
Yes. And some of those things are tried and true financial planning things. 50 is the time to start doing Roth conversions. Much less painful to designate a certain amount each year and say, all right, I'm going to suck up the taxes on $25,000 or $50,000 or whatever the number is that you're willing to pay taxes on. This is the time to do it. 50 is the time to say, okay, I'm out of the little kid phase. Maybe for the next 2 years, I will choose an HSA healthcare plan because I will max that for 2 years, set it aside. It will pay my Medicare Part B premiums for the first few years. So these are tactics that financial planners use, and I articulate them in ways that enable women to conclude what I need them to conclude, and this is all about preparation for retirement, the modeling, et cetera. But I think that we cannot talk enough about investing in skills, investing in our health, investing in mobility. There's a reason my mom is 97. She walked everywhere all the time. Wow. She's still walking.
Right. Chair yoga, all that stuff.
Whatever. She's moving. And walking is magic. Walking is magic. But the other two things that are really important, and to bring it back around to that very sobering statistic we started with, dementia is highly correlated with bad glucose metabolism. And that's what the data is starting to say. We need to spend 10 to 15 years writing our glucose metabolism, writing our cardiac profile. And for women, 50s and 60s are a very dangerous period because hormonally we are in a state of who knows what.
Right.
I mean, I'd say flux, but it's more like crazy.
Hot mess.
Hot mess. Hot mess. And so stress hits us harder than men. And we need to get real about that. Our days of I'll just suck it up, eventually it will end, are over because too many women stress themselves into illness. Right.
When someone does become frail, you talk about where to live in this season of frailty. Where do you live in the season?
Well, that's a really good question. And it goes back to the multi-generational living. I can tell you a story of some clients who mom was widowed and became frail, and she was still in her own house. At the same time, my clients' partners wanted to sell their starter home, which they could not in a tight market. I mean, they could get top dollar for it, but they couldn't find what they wanted. And so what they arranged to do was to buy the family house. Mom made the other two siblings whole, and they renovated the downstairs as a primary suite for mom, so she didn't have to face the stairs. They renovated the upstairs as the new primary for them and their family. And the kitchen received some special features. So in addition to mom's shower having a curbless entry and all that good stuff, a drawer microwave and redoing the cabinets with custom, I don't know what you call them, but custom mechanics on the inside so that she didn't have to get down on her knees and reach in so that everything slid out. And these tools are available now, Because so let's go to Joe Coughlin, MIT Age Lab, and the longevity economy. Like boomers are going to invent anything that they want.
We do have to make it easier to make our homes more livable, that's for sure.
And I think that that's a nascent market.
Yeah.
Is we can't move. The housing stock isn't there. So bringing it all the way back to the triple-decker club, the housing stock isn't there. So how can we make a home livable for an aging person? And every year I am reading about fantastic as well as practical. You know, the days of, oh, you need grab bars in the shower are done. That's the minimum. Now we're hiding things, we're making them beautiful as well as functional, and broadening doorways, you know, arranging, getting rid of corners on counters. All of these things help.
Right.
They make a difference.
I'm fond of telling people to go to AARP where they have a home modification guide that at least helps people understand some of the things that they could be doing to their home to modify it to make it more livable. We have a little bit of time left, and I'm curious if we've had Annalee Kruger on as a guest previously, and I'm curious if you'd be willing to chat a little bit about the need for elder planning as you sort of think about this aging in place activity.
Well, I listened raptly to Annalee as she worked. I was part of the cohort, of course, for the elder planning specialist class, and got a lot out of it. And part of the season of frailty is to do the planning. And I'm convinced, as is Annalee, that doing it multi-generationally can really make a difference. If, as an adult child, I make it apparent to my parent that I am doing elder care planning for me, it is easier perhaps for them to come with and participate. And that's how I've always handled it, is that I'm not taking aim at the parent, who of course becomes reluctant and thinks they have more time than they actually have. So I do believe that it's a multi-generational exercise, and it's instructive for kids as well, because they're doing two things. One is they're learning about ageism and what they don't want to happen to them. And the second is that they are getting a head start on their own planning. So it can be a really rewarding experience. Annalee is wonderful at it. And I think I take to heart the fact that you do not want to wait until you are in crisis. You have to think about this and have some kind of facilitated meeting in advance.
So that's it for this episode of Decoding Retirement. We hope we provided you with some actionable advice to help you better plan for or live in retirement. And don't forget, for the latest retirement news and expert analysis, check out yahoofinance.com.